When it comes to their electric cars, Mercedes-Benz stood out for two reasons. First of all, they developed their electric range to sit alongside their combustion engine cars rather than make electric versions of those cars. And second of all, they weren't quite as revolutionary as maybe we would have expected, considering that they wore the same badge as the manufacturer who made us give up our horses and adopt four wheels instead. But this new Mercedes-Benz, its new CLA with EQ technology, could be about to change all of that, despite the fact that it looks disarmingly similar to the car it replaces. Yet underneath, this is very much the revolution that we've come to expect from Mercedes-Benz. Welcome to this week's road test review, welcome to the new Mercedes-Benz CLA with EQ technology, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now don't get me wrong, I've always really liked the electric offerings from Mercedes-Benz, but it's always seemed to me that there's been a better option available elsewhere. The EQC, a really good medium-sized all-electric SUV, but I'd always preferred a Jaguar I-Pace. And of course, when it came to the big sumptuous EQS, their luxury limousine, their electric version of the S-Class in some respects, the BMW i7 just did it that little bit better. And it was the same with the EQE, the BMW i5, I always felt was a better drive. And that's despite the fact that both of those BMWs sat on multi-energy platforms. So what's changed with this car? Well, quite a lot in some respects, because gone is the sort of EQ badging. It still is called the CLA with EQ technology to differentiate it from the combustion engine version, because that's the first big change. This is going to come with a combustion engine as well. So it is a multi-energy platform. No longer are they developing an electric car completely separate to a combustion engine car. But they have favoured the EV technology with their new range. And this is the first of them, the CLA, and it's a small compact four-door saloon car. Now of course there's going to be some people out there that's going to go, well that's the fine, but you know, it's still not as good as my petrol CLA because it won't go as far. Well, guess what? That's the revolution, because this electric Mercedes-Benz does go as far as the petrol version, as we're about to find out. But as always, before we start the full review, let's take a look at the main bullet points of the new Mercedes-Benz CLA with EQ technology. So, the new CLA with EQ technology is, the company tells us, the most emotional and efficient, intuitive and intelligent Mercedes-Benz ever. It has an 85 kilowatt-hour usable capacity battery to deliver a range of up to 492 miles, according to WLTP tests. It has a new 800 volt architecture with 320 kilowatt DC charging speeds, allowing you to add 200 miles of range in just 10 minutes. The CLA 250 Plus we have here is a single motor car that produces 268 horsepower. And prices will start at just over £45,000 here in the UK, depending on trim level and before options are fitted. Now, in case you missed that, let me just remind you of those numbers again. A near 500 mile range and the ability to put 200 miles of range into the car in around 10 minutes, and all for less than £50,000. Is this finally the electric car to silence the doubters, to dissuade the naysayers that say electric cars don't have a future? Well, the only way we can find that out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And it is the AutoEV one. It always has been. Right, let's start with how the car looks, shall we? Well, there's no doubting the fact that it's a Mercedes-Benz, and in case you weren't sure, they've put 142 three-pointed stars across the front of it for you. And that's just this bit here. And if you don't catch those, you've got the big Mercedes-Benz three-pointed star bang in the middle. And in case you missed that one, there's another one there on the bonnet badge. And in case you miss all of that, on the optional headlights, there's also a three-pointed star lighting signature. Right, we get it. It's a Mercedes-Benz. And I do find that a little bit odd that they put so many on it, because the three-pointed star is probably one of the most recognisable brand images that you can find in the world today. However, it is very distinctive, because these are sort of like backlit and illuminated, and it is quite nice, so I'll forgive them a little bit for that. And it's quite a handsome little car, the CLA, isn't it? You know, and it does look, as I say, remarkably like the old one, and that's the thing. they've gone down the route of making sort of like the electric version and the combustion engine the same, because they don't want to separate it out like they've done with their previous electric offerings up till now, you know, the EQS, the EQE, and of course their SUVs. And we've seen that because obviously we've seen the new, you know, sort of like GLC electric version SUV that was unveiled at Munich recently. Of course, you get this lovely light bar that stretches across the front there as well. Very aerodynamically efficient, and that helps with its range. 0.21 drag coefficient. Beautifully aerodynamically efficient, the way they manage the airflow around the car. But as I say, I think it's quite a handsome little car. And of course, it's, you know, the traditional sort of Mercedes-Benz four-door coupe style of thing, and it has grown a little bit in size, as we'll now talk about as we go around the car. But I do like the way that start to look, I really do. This is an AMG line, so this is the medium one. There's the Sport Edition AMG line, and then I think it's the AMG line Premium Edition is the sort of like top spec one, but I'll go through the trims with you a bit later. But yeah, I think we're off to a good start. Very handsome looking, very distinctly Mercedes-Benz, in case you hadn't realised and you maybe thought you were looking at a new BMW. There's enough telltale signs that it is a Mercedes-Benz. Now, to give you the idea of the size of the car, it's actually a little bit longer, believe it or not, than a Tesla Model 3, and it's only 30mm shorter than the current Mercedes-Benz C-Class. So it does occupy that sort of medium-sized sort of saloon sector in some respects, despite the fact the CLA is the smallest of the sort of the four-door Mercedes-Benz, but it has grown over the previous generation CLA. 3 trim levels, as I suggest. You get Sport Edition, which is your starter for 10, which this car is. You get 18-inch alloy wheels on that as standard. Then you move up to an AMG line, which gets 19-inch alloy wheels, as does the AMG line Premium Edition. So there's the 3 trim levels. That's the 250 plus. There's also going to be the 350 4MATIC that comes out, so a dual motor version of the car. But believe it or not, it's not that much less efficient if you do go for the dual motor car. And great news for you estate car lovers, because there's going to be a shooting brake version of it by the end of the year as well. Fantastic, I'm really looking forward to that car. And as I say, it's going to be available across with the EV model and hybrid as well. So they really are covering all the bases. Again, lot of nice sort of like features on the car in terms of aerodynamic efficiency. But unfortunately, they've given me a black one, but never mind. You've got some nice air curtains that go down the side there. These aerodynamically efficient wheels, which do look nicer than the last sort of like generation of AMG line aero wheels and things. The flush door handles that go in and out of the car, you know, obviously when you need to open and close it. The standalone mirrors, you know, on the door panels as well, which contain an awful lot of cameras. There is a huge amount of tech on this car. And you will not believe how much tech is on the inside of it, but we'll go through a little bit later on. Obviously, frameless doors, because it is that sort of four-door coupe style of car, so you get the frameless doors and this lovely swooping rear to the car as well. Massive big glass panoramic sunroof on the car as well, which doesn't have a blind because it has infrared coating on it to stop the heat getting into it and heating up the cabin of the car as well. So that's quite clever. You get some nice little bits of chrome down the side there, which I don't mind so much in a Mercedes, although it's not massively sustainable, but it's, you know, it does make the car quite distinctive, and I do quite like that bow shape there. And it's nicer than you get on the EQE and EQS, because it doesn't have quite so many sort of like panes in it as well. But yeah, really distinctive, sort of like if you're used to the CLA style, it's that four-door coupe style of car. Not quite as anonymous as the EQS and the EQE have been, perhaps. Certainly not when, you know, in a nicer colour with some nice alloy wheels. It does stand out, but very aero efficient and very Mercedes-Benz. And guess what you get around the back of it? Yay, more stars. Obviously you get the big one in the centre there that doubles as the boot release as well, which is quite nice. Do like that. And in case you don't realise that, there's also the 3-pointed star in the rear light signature, which has a lovely light bar that goes across the back of the car there. There's some nice detailing round about the bottom here, this diffuser section, again to help with the airflow of the car, and you can really see that more coupe-like profile that we've been used to with the CLA in the previous generation car. I quite like this. It's quite a handsome little car. As I say, I get it, maybe the black isn't quite the best colour for it, and you might at first look at it and go, oh, I'm not very sure. It's one of those kind of, it's nice, as I say, the more you look at it, the more detailing you start to find about it, and it is, I think it's a really good looking little car. And because it sort of blends into the background a little bit, that helps with it a little bit. It doesn't look like maybe the EQS just maybe didn't quite have the sort of like feeling of that big luxury car. It didn't look anything like an S-Class. The fact that the new electric CLA looks like a CLA, I think will help a lot of previous generation CL owners move into the electric version quite smoothly, if that makes sense. But my opinion's not really worth toffee, let's be honest. Your opinion is, oh, that's what's important, your opinion. What do you think of the new Mercedes-Benz CLA with EQ technology? Does it float your boat? Would you trade out of your petrol, your combustion engine CLA to go into an electric one? Look, now it looks like this. Or do you think they haven't done enough to it? Do you think it should be a bit more radical in its design? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know them down in the comment section down below. Now, despite the looks, it's not a hatchback. It is a booted, well, saloon, well, coupe as Mercedes-Benz would have us talk about. 405 litres, I don't think that's bad. And I tell you what, it's quite a big boot. It goes back quite a way. There is a split fold rear seat, a 40-20-40 split rear bench. I don't have the number for the total capacity if all that's folded down. If I find it out after I've finished filming, I'll pop it in the banner below. If not, well, you can make up a number and it'll be that, okay? You are limited a little bit by the aperture, obviously. Because obviously that's, you know, that's what you get with a saloon car. So if you're going to go and buy a fridge freezer at Curry's, you might be struggling a wee bit there, but remember there's going to be a shooting brake version, which is going to be good, or a state car in other people's parlance. There isn't really any underfloor storage. There's a tiny little hole there, which you could put a warning triangle in, or, you know, like your high-vis jacket if you were touring with the car, or other little bits and pieces, but I wouldn't call it underfloor storage. However, there is a boot up at the front and it's quite big, and believe it or not, you're also going to get storage up at the front even when it's a combustion engine car. So when the hybrid arrives, it will still have storage up at the front. Now you're starting to understand why this car is quite a special car that we're talking about, because up at the front you've got an additional 101 litres of storage. This makes this little car quite practical, I think. Now, I mean, obviously it's got its cable bag in there, but you'd get certainly another carry-on in there. In fact, you get a carry-on plus the cable bag in there. Or, you know, or more soft bags if you're using rucksacks and things like that. This is an incredibly practical little car. And as you see, you'll still get storage when it comes as a hybrid as well. Not as much as that, obviously, but still a decent amount of storage as well. I think that's really impressive. Now, obviously, as I say, it's one of these sort of four-door coupe style of cars. So, you know, getting in and out is a little bit tricky because you've got to duck your head down underneath the actual rear pillar. But it's not bad once you're in. That's my driving position. I'm 5'8". I've got plenty of knee room. I've got plenty of foot room. I can get my feet well underneath the seat and just sort of dance them around. I'm okay for headroom. I would think if you're 6 foot though, that's where you're going to sort of struggle. I can just feel the roof just being just above me. I couldn't wear my top hat in here. And you do feel a little bit close to this sloping roofline. But as I say, remember, it is a four-door coupe. It's not designed to be a big saloon car. The C-Class will take up that sort of mantle. But I tell you what, for a multi-energy platform, this isn't bad because you've got a completely flat floor across the car as well. Your legs do feel a tiny bit pushed up if you sit with them like that. You can see there, but obviously you will adapt sort of like your seating position and slouch down a little bit. So there is a little bit of, you know, sort of like pushing the floor up style of thing you get in some electric cars, but not as much as you would think. You get the mat pockets on the backs of the front seats, which are these nets, which obviously in about 10-15 years time will be all loosey-goosey and just lying around the place. You get two USB-C ports there. You get the nice Mercedes-Benz sort of propeller style vents for the back. You get storage in the sense of you get a fold down armrest plus two cup holders plus a little slot in there for putting, I don't know, a mobile phone in or for packet polos or something. ISOFIX points are nice and easy to get because they're just the lift-off covers, which you'll pop in the door bin and forget they're there, and you'll lose them in Sainsbury's car park, or they'll end up rattling around the car somewhere. And you've got a very sort of like shallow-ish door bin. But I have to say, rear space is good. Now, this is where things really start to get quite, as I say before, revolutionary in some respects. This user interface, this whole operating system is, well, I have to be frank with you and say it's way above my understanding. You know, and I genuinely do mean that. And I think I'm relatively tech savvy, but this is on another level. And it's great to see Mercedes-Benz really sort of pushing the envelope with the technology. And it seems to be quite useful technology. It's not just tech for tech's sake, oh, let's just put this in it because that seems like the right thing to do. There's a genuine thought gone into this, and it's just mind-blowing what this car is capable of. in some respects. So effectively what you have here is three, it depends on the model you get or the option you have, but effectively there are three screens here, okay? So you've got this 10.25 inch, I think, driver information display, which is very familiar Mercedes, very, very familiar. If you're used to the MBUX system, which I love, I really like the way it works, that's going to look very, very familiar to you there. Then you've got this 14-inch central display here, and then there's another screen, which is an option depending on the model. I think you get it standard on the AMG line Premium Edition, the top of the range one. Or if nobody's sitting in it there, that it will go off. So I'll put some B-roll up there, but means your passenger can, you know, do things on the, you know, the infotainment thing and navigation, and they've got the same control there that you have here in that respect. But it's very, very different. It's really, really different. It's really clever. Now, I may have to refer to notes with this, so apologies, because I had a little briefing from the chap from Mercedes-Benz this morning, lovely guy, but genuinely, some of it was just going over my head. Effectively in here, there's a big supercomputer, and Mercedes-Benz do use that terminology, supercomputer, and it is capable, the calculations that it is capable of per second would just blow your mind. I mean, genuinely, it's tens of thousands of calculations it can do per second. It's just, and I said to him, I said, how do you even measure that? And there's a special word for it, the type of thing that it does. I didn't know. So basically what you have here is, it uses layers, okay? And this is the latest MB operating system, okay? You'll notice there's a little blue Mercedes-Benz avatar, if you like, or hopefully you can see it just floating up there. And it can really sense, the whole car interacts with you effectively, okay? And it can sense if you're getting quite angry about certain things, that glows a bit red. And it might suggest things to, dare I suggest, calm you down a little bit. You know, would you like to play some soothing music? Would you like this? I mean, really? Wow. You know, I've got a wife for that, you know, but I don't need my car doing it, but that's what it does. And then you have what's called zero layer, okay? So you've got this thing here. Obviously, you've got things such as Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That goes without, you know, that goes without being said. But you've got this zero layer here, and then it puts up two things that you use the most often. So the car's learning you all the time. And it says, right, every time Brian gets in first thing in the morning to drive his daughter to school, he listens to the radio, and he probably calls somebody, will call his, you know, other half, he'll call Liz to say that, you know, the school run went fine. It'll put those two things up there. Okay, so you've got a shortcut button straight to them. So that's the first thing, okay? And then you've got all these sort of like widgets and things, you know, I think they're called widgets, are they, or tiles, you know, that you can go into and you can move these round, you know, so they're like your phone. When you press and hold your phone, you know, you can shuffle them into different folders. You can do that here. So again, if you group all your music and audio together like I do on my phone, you can do that in that folder there. So that will go in there and let you do that. It operates using, so all the time it's constantly using Microsoft Bing as its search engine, and Google AI and ChatGPT. So those three things are constantly being used in here as well, okay? So we're out today in the Cotswolds, okay, you know, on the UK launch, and it will pick up sort of like, you know, the brown tourist signs and things like that. So if you're driving through like the local village and you're, you know, maybe, I don't know, you might want to know some facts about, you know, the local village you're driving through, you can ask the car to tell you them, or to give you a recommendation for you know, a nice pub for lunch or things like that. And it's constantly learning, it's constantly interacting with you. And I find this just, I genuinely have found it quite mind-blowing. And as I say, I'm not even talking about half of what this is capable of, because I genuinely don't really understand it. But it is unbelievable what this thing can actually do. You've also got a little camera there as well, so you can have you can have Teams calls in the car. Now, if you do that, so obviously from a safety point of view, because we'll talk about this now in a bit more depth. If you're using, say, Teams, if you've got a, you know, you're driving along and you're right, I've got a Teams call now with the guys in the office. They can see you, but you can't see them. So it doesn't give like your laptop all this, the faces up on their cameras here, but you can have a Teams call. you know, using that camera system there. Now, what it does do from the other safety point of view as well is, if your passenger, because you can play games with it, you know, like proper computer games, you can link a mobile to it to use the mobile as a controller. And if I'm driving along and say Liz was doing that, I mean, not that she does, she doesn't, none of us play computer games, even my daughter, but you know, if she was doing that and I kept looking across, the camera picks that up and it gives you a warning. It's sort of like 3 strikes and you're out. I think it gives you 2 warnings and then it shuts the screen down so you're not getting distracted. So, you know, then that's really good as well. But look at it, you know, it's incredible, this whole thing. And as I say, it's constantly evolving, it's constantly learning your habits. And as I say, if you've got this, oh, that's different sounds you can have as well. So that's a bit like the BMW system, the digital sounds. You know, so, you know, your avatar up there, as I say, if it might suggest to you, oh, every time you get in, you play Greatest Hits Radio. Would you like me to, you know, start playing Greatest Hits Radio if you don't particularly switch it on or whatever. So it learns your habits, and the whole thing is this constant conversation between you and the car, effectively. Unbelievable, genuinely, really unbelievable. And that's what I mean. It's not tech just for tech's sake. You know, it's not. You know, it's genuinely useful stuff. And obviously, there's things like voice activation as well you can use, that you can interact with it as well. But as I say, the fact that it picks up on your moods, I just find that it's far beyond me to understand. And of course, you can use it just as, you know, that you would use any other normal infotainment system as well. So you get a great, you know, the sat nav there. It uses Google Maps, as I say now, so that's excellent. So all the Google stuff from the Google Maps, which I use for my navigation all the time. So that's what its actual default navigation actually is. So you don't have to go into, you know, CarPlay or stuff to activate your Google Maps. And as I say, if you go into these different tiles here, you can activate up various different things. You know, so you get Disney Plus, YouTube. You know, obviously you have to subscribe to things like that, but you can put those in there and log into that, so you could watch, you know, Disney Plus, using your latest series you're watching while you're charging the car up or stuff like that. You can have that as well. And then, as I say, there's games in there as well, which you can have across the screen. It's just phenomenal, honestly. And as I say, I could be here for hours talking about it, and I talk too much anyway. But as I say, I genuinely don't understand the majority of it, but it's brilliant. So there we go. So that's what you get with all of this new MBUX. And as I say, that's why I think this is a real technological marvel, this car. But the interior itself is a really, really nice design. I do actually quite like the fact that you've got this screen, and he's saying it's angled vertically like this, because they've looked at it as to where it's going to get the less intrusion from lights. You're not going to get glare, you know. And even if you do, if it comes through the roof and you've got bright sunshine shining on it, it then adapts itself to darken and things like that, so you can still see it. Big centre console here, this floating console, so there's good storage. You get 2 cup holders there. You've also got storage underneath here as well, which is excellent. You've got some buttons along here, so you get a dynamic select there, your parking camera, switching the screen on and off, hazards, the microphone obviously for using voice activation, and then volume and stuff. There's a wireless charging pad that your phone can just sit in there. You've got a nice relatively deep centre console in there with a little removable tray. You've got decent sized door bins, which aren't too far down the door. They're at a nice height actually, I quite like them. And then obviously as well, you get a glove box with the car too. Now the seating position is lovely, it really is. You get an excellent driving position. You get this lovely 3-spoke steering wheel here. This has still got the Mercedes-Benz sort of touch-sensitive controls on it, like we've been used to with their other products, their other EQ products. But again, I have to admit, I don't mind them so much. You know, so for volume, just a little swipe there, you know, and then, you know, set cruise control and everything there. Of all the touch-sensitive controls you get in cars, as much as I don't like them, the Merc ones tend to be the best. The other nice thing about it is the column selector for the transmission, which is up here. You know, you also start the car by pushing the end of it, so that's the start button on the end of that. And then obviously it's your usual, you know, reverse up, you know, drive all the way down, neutral in the middle, and then push in for park. But this also alters your brake regen as well. So you push it away to, I think, we'll do it when we go out for a drive, but you push it away to increase the brake regen and pull it back towards you to decrease it. That's nice. And then obviously your wipers are over on this side here where your wash wipe at the end, and that's your indicator as well. So it's a really nice cabin, I have to admit. There's a really nice sort of like feeling to the cabin. Seats are very comfortable as well, and you get these adjustable head restraints which slide in and out rather than up and down, so they're really good as well. So you get a perfect sort of like position for those to really sort of like, you know, you rest your head back and will keep your head in a nice upright position, and God forbid you do have an accident. And then of course you get things such as the usual Mercedes-Benz seat controls on the door panel here, and things like mirror controls and stuff like that. Right, I don't need to go on about it. That's just, there's so much going on in that. There's so much to talk about that. We could be here for us. In fact, let me just look at my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. What have we talked about? Virtual Assistant with ChatGPT, Google, Microsoft Bing, Google Gemini to help answer the questions. Yeah, I made a note of all that. Oh, it's connected to the intelligent cloud and keeps the car. I meant to say that to you as well. So it's connected to the Mercedes-Benz intelligent cloud. So you know on your smartphone you get sort of, you know, the things, you've got the latest software update available to download, and you do that. This does it automatically. So it knows, you know, if there's an update available for it, it can download that. And then there'll be certain apps that it'll say to you, do you want to download this latest version of this app? And it can then do it, say, overnight, for instance. So if you're, you know, you've got the car parked up or you're charging somewhere while you're in the office or something like that, you can tell the car to update the apps when it's doing that. It's just really clever stuff and way above my mortal brain to understand what that is capable of. But it will also use the navigation system as well to plot routes for you, using sort of like, you know, the state of charge. It knows how many charging bays are in use at a certain charge station, so it can plan out a route for you based on stuff like that. Just mind-blowing. Really clever. I think that's one of the biggest technological advancements in cars I have seen in all the years of doing this job. What this is actually capable of, I think it's incredible. I really do. Now, if all that tech's not enough to get you hot under the collar, wait till you hear this. 85 kilowatt hour usable capacity NMC battery, which should give, according to WLTP tests on the CLA 250, 492 miles of range. And Mercedes-Benz tell me it gets really close to that in the real world as well. Even the 350 that's coming out, the 4MATIC with the dual motor, gets 479 miles of range. 320 kilowatts charging speed. Okay, it's an 800 volt architecture, and as I said right at the start, you can put 200 miles of range in this car in 10 minutes if you use a fast enough charger. But the usual benchmark of 10 to 80%, given the fact that it is quite a big battery, is achieved in 22 minutes. It has an onboard 11 kilowatt charger as standard, so if you do have access to an 11 kilowatt wall box, you go from flat to full in 9 hours. But if it's a more likely 7 kilowatt wall box you've got, like I have, then it's 13.5 hours to go from flat to full. The car comes with a heat pump as standard as well, and it's also an airside heat pump that it uses, which is a much more efficient style of heat pump because it uses the waste heat from the battery, the drivetrain and the ambient temperature to operate it, rather than a separate sort of like heating system in the car. This is a really impressive little car in terms of its efficiency, Mercedes-Benz say, and as I say, I can't wait to put it to a test at a later date. Right, so now we've discussed all the sort of like tech and all the rest of it, let's get it out on the road and see how it actually drives. So this is the 250 that I've got, so it's a single motor car, which means 272 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds. So not blisteringly fast, but fast enough, I'd suggest. You know, if you want more, there's the CLA 350 4MATIC, which obviously is dual motor, and that gets 348 horsepower, and that will bring the 0 to 60 time down to about 5 seconds. So that's, well, quicker. But to me, that's not really what this car's about. The thing that really, and I mean, when I say impresses me, I mean really impresses me about this car, is how smooth it is. It feels like it just glides down the road, this car. And that's also helpful in terms of, you know, stringing a set of bends together. It just seems to glide between each bend. Now the suspension setup, it's McPherson struts all round. You get a 3-link arrangement at the front, multi-link at the back, which is great. The steering's a tiny little bit light, I'd suggest, in the normal mode. You've got obviously different driving modes you can go into through the dynamic select button down here. So if I now go into sport, you've got comfort, sport, eco and individual. It weights up a little bit, but it still feels a tiny little bit artificial. I'd say if you're into a pin sharp, you want a pin sharp driver's tool, then dare I suggest a BMW i4 is going to be the better car for you. But I don't think that's really what the CLA's party trick is about. The party trick with this car is how smooth and how refined that it feels. Now there's a little bit of road noise from it, there's no doubt about that, but the suspension and the dampers are really well judged. I come along just at like a nasty little part of the road earlier there. I came down the same piece of road in the car I've driven down here today in the Nissan Ariya Nismo, and it was really bouncing around. You know, it felt really uncomfortable there. You could feel the suspension working in the Mercedes, but it wasn't transmitting all of that imperfection into the cabin. So that's the key, I think, with this car. So it handles that really well. But as I say, up on this sort of like smooth open road here, you lift off and the car just glides, it just keeps going. Now there's a 2-speed transmission in the car, and that's key to its efficiency. So a bit like the Porsche Taycan has, you've got one gear that effectively sort of like gets you off the line and gets you up to speed, and then another gear then takes over, which is a more efficient way of doing it. And that is, so as I say, the key to this car's party trick of its efficiency, along with the aerodynamics of it, obviously. But as I say, when you drive along here at 60 miles an hour and lift your foot off the accelerator, the car just maintains a speed and just keeps going. It's a really interesting way to drive. It really teaches you to be quite smooth with your inputs on the car. You've got 4 levels of brake regen with it as well, which again, I really like the way they've done it. They've done it on this transmission stock here. So if I push it away from me, I now get intelligent recuperation. So if there's a car in front of me, for instance, that starts to slow down, the car will slow down. If it moves away again and pulls away and it gets a distance ahead of me, it won't keep activating the brakes whenever I lift off. There's plenty of cars do that type of thing. You've then got no recuperation at all, so you know, nothing at all, the car will just coast. Or if I pull it back towards me, we get normal and then strong recuperation. There's nothing behind me. It really pulls the car up and it pulls it to a standstill. That's really impressive. If you're a fan of one pedal driving, you're going to get on well with this car. That's lovely the way it does that. Yeah, so as I say, that's quite clever stuff, and all of that is geared towards the efficiency, you know, making the car go the range that it does. But just using it as a normal car, it just feels that's the standout thing for me, is how the CLA doesn't really stand out. Does that make sense? You know, it's a car that just allows you to get on with, you know, the task of driving it. You know, there's nothing wild and wacky about it. It's just a really good car. You just get in it and just use it like a generally standard, you know, Mercedes-Benz. It's quiet, it's really comfortable as well. That's one thing I've noticed as well, driving sort of, you know, that I've done today in the car. The seat holds you really, really well. You've got nice support down the, you know, the bolsters. There's a good length in the squab. You get a really good driving position in the car. There's really good visibility out of it. I would say if you're a taller driver, just watch, because as I say, I'm aware of that sort of headlining being there. So just watch if you're a bit of a taller driver. You need to, you know, do a distance. The other thing that I've noticed is, or dare I suggest haven't noticed, is the screens. You know, now I've obviously driven Mercedes with the Hyperscreens before, and this is obviously sort of like the new version of that Hyperscreen style. Sorry, there's a car coming. I'm on a single track road. So the fact that it sort of, dare I suggest, blends into the background and doesn't actually sort of like distract you, I think is to be commended. Because that is the fear that we've got now, isn't it? With so much on cars being done through screens, is, you know, the fact that, you know, there's so much there that you soon become distracted by. You don't. It very easily fades into the background. You've got the usual lovely, clear Mercedes-Benz instrumentation panel in front of you here, but then this Google Maps still here, this 14-inch central screen, just works. It just looks lovely. Everything's really clear and easy to use on the move, so adjusting temperature and things like that. Yeah, you've got to do it through the screen, but it's nice and easy to do it through the screen. The buttons on the steering wheel, yes, they're touch sensitive, and I don't normally like them, but at least the Merc ones do work quite well. I'm really impressed with this car. I mean, I'm really impressed with it. It handles well. It handles well enough. As I say, the BMW is a sharper tool to drive, but you wouldn't be disappointed with this. But given the fact that it's so good at the other stuff, the high-speed cruising, the refinement, the comfort, and then just the way that it's so easy to get on with, and then just has this lovely sort of quiet persona about it that just glides you down the road. I think this is a real game-changing car, I really do. I think they've really judged this well. And it's a car that, I think this is a car that will change a lot of petrol combustion engine Mercedes-Benz drivers into electric Mercedes-Benz drivers. I really do, and I think there'll be an awful lot of electric car drivers will move to Mercedes-Benz because of the efficiency, because of the range, because of everything sort of that you get with this car, and the fact that it's got this technology and this amount of usable and useful technology in this car, I think will attract a lot of younger buyers, younger buyers to Mercedes-Benz who maybe haven't considered them before, but like the tech that a lot of, dare I suggest, the newer Chinese manufacturers are coming out with. The technology, the connectivity, the message of sustainability as well. There's a big message of sustainability with this car. They talk a lot about the whole life costs of it, and how much impact that it has on the environment, over the life cycle of the car. All of that, I think, will really turn on younger buyers into Mercedes-Benz buyers. So all of that combined, I think this is a real standout car. I really do. And as I say, it's weird because it doesn't really stand out. They've not made some weird futuristic looking concept, making big bold claims for it. It's just a Mercedes-Benz saloon car that happens to be electric. But now all the sort of the compromises that we used to have with electric cars, the low rate or the range that wasn't maybe quite as good, or the fact that it takes so long to charge and things like that, all of those arguments have now gone, which makes this an absolute 100% winner when it comes to new EVs. And this is the future. This really is. And I tell you what, the future looks good and it wears a Mercedes badge. Now here's another thing that blows me away about this car, because when I started doing this job reviewing electric cars, I thought when I got to the stage where I'm talking about an electric car that was capable of nearly 500 miles and could be charged almost as quickly, as putting petrol in a normal combustion engine car, we'd be talking about some £100,000 luxury, saloon car, like the next generation EQS or the third generation Porsche Taycan, that style of car. But no, it's in this, a small, compact, four-door family car. Price-wise, I think this is good value for money. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's cheap, I'm saying I think it's good value for money for what you get. It starts with this 250 in the Sport Edition at £45,615. So that's your starter for 10. You move up to the AMG line, the same with the 250, but better equipment level, the AMG line, and that costs another £3,760 at £49,375. If you want the full fat AMG line premium edition, then you need to find another £2,395 over that, and that gives that car a list price of £51,770. And you're getting near 500 miles of range with that capability, and as I say, for round about the 50 grand mark, and it wears a Mercedes-Benz badge, many of them, as we've seen before. I genuinely do think this is the car that's going to change the game for an awful lot of people. I think this is the car that's going to turn an awful lot of combustion engine drivers into electric car drivers. I really do. Right, competition. Well, it's got bigger, hasn't it, the CLA, over the previous car. As I say, slightly longer than the Tesla Model 3. And price point wise, that's the car you're going to be thinking about, the Tesla Model 3. And with that, of course, comes the other cars that's been competing with. So the BMW i4, because it's a similar thing, isn't it? That sort of four-door coupe style rather than actually be a 3 Series. But remember, the Neue Class, the new 3 Series is coming out, i3, very, very soon. But there'll be an electric C-Class to compete with that, I would suggest. Polestar 2, that's also got to be considered as well. Starting to feel a bit long in the tooth, the Polestar now. Still love it, but it's starting to feel a bit long in the tooth. But we've seen some new cars move into this market space over the last couple of years as well, haven't we? Of course, we've had the BYD Seal, which I think is a brilliant car. I think that's BYD's best car. Really good car to drive, really efficient, and good value for money. Talking of value for money, AMG, they've gotten in the act as well, haven't they, with the new IM5, that sort of luxury sub-brand. They've got a huge amount of power, you know, and a lot of tech on that car for sort of like similar money to this. So that's a car you're also going to consider as well now. And of course, there's the Hyundai Ioniq 6, which is, again, that sort of swoopy sort of styling, really sort of like avant-garde looking car, and it's about to have a facelift as well. So that's a car to consider. There's also another new car moving into this market space, which I'm going to be testing. I'm actually filming this on the Tuesday. On Friday, the same with this week, I'm going to be driving that, and that's the Mazda 6e. So there's plenty of competition, and there's going to be more as well. So who says all we're buying is SUVs? Because saloons do seem to be making a bit of a comeback, folks. So here's what we like, and also what we don't like about the new Mercedes-Benz CLA with EQ technology. Well, we think the car sets a new benchmark for range and efficiency within the electric car world. It has typically neat Mercedes-Benz styling. It offers huge advancement, but with well integrated and useful technology. And on the face of it, it does actually appear to offer reasonable value for money against its peers. We don't like. Well, there is a lack of rear headroom due to that more coupe-like styling for taller passengers. Perhaps they've overdone the branding just a little bit, but for us, there's very little else to complain about. Whenever I've reviewed an electric Mercedes-Benz before, they've all been a lot of pomp and ceremony surrounding them without really much to back them up. Don't get me wrong, they've been good cars. I have enjoyed the electric offerings that Mercedes-Benz has given us so far. But they didn't really change the way we think about electric cars or how we use them. Perhaps they were more designed to change the way that we think about Mercedes-Benz than that. And if that was the case, then maybe they did okay. But this car is very different to those previous offerings from the company, because this is the car that will change how we think about electric cars. This is the car that will quash the naysayers. This is the car that will change how we view electric mobility moving forward. The most standout thing about the CLA with EQ technology is the fact that it doesn't stand out by trying to be something wild and wacky. It is just, at the end of the day, a normal Mercedes-Benz saloon car. And because of that, it makes it very, very easy to use. And the technology that it comes with is a true advancement onwards. Finally, we've got a Mercedes-Benz to get really excited about. And finally, we've got an electric car to quash those naysayers, as I say. And it's been down to Mercedes-Benz, the company that got us off of horses and into cars in the first place, that are now changing the way that we think about electric cars moving forward. And that is worth commending them for. Thank you for watching another road test review on AutoEV. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then when you've done that, make sure you turn on your notifications so that you get an alert when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this week's review, and obviously I hope you have, give it a little thumbs up. And of course, as always, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the new Mercedes-Benz CLA with EQ technology. Is there enough stars on it for you? Now, if you're a big fan of social media, then you can find us across on the usual platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, all the rest of it. So if you'd like to give us a follow there, we'd certainly appreciate it. And if you're interested in buying an electric car, might not be a new Mercedes-Benz CLA, maybe you're thinking about, I don't know, I want a Mercedes-Benz used offerings, but you want to know a bit more about it. How do you find out? Well, here's how. Stay in the AutoEV homepage on our YouTube channel, and just at the top there, you'll find a magnifying glass. Type the name of the car you're interested in buying in there, and of course if it's been a new electric car in the UK in the last 6 years, we'll have subjected it to the actual road test that car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric car. The AutoEV one, of course. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching, thank you for your continued support. I'll see you again soon.